What's going on, champs and champettes? It's FireMonkey here, and in today's YouTube video we have to talk about a new actual blog post, or I guess community post that released the other day that talks about some new changes that will be happening in the v39.40 update, which is right around the corner. Okay, I don't know why the game is lagging like this, but we have a decent amount of stuff actually being announced, and some of it might actually interest some of you guys, so I thought I'd make a whole entire video talking about the changes before they actually go live, so you can discuss in the comments down below, are these good changes, are these bad changes, or are they somewhere in between. So firstly, Crash Pad Juniors are going to be getting vaulted in the next Fortnite update, and replacing them is actually going to be shockwave grenades. They go on to mention that in unranked battle royale in v39.40 they're going to try, putting shockwave grenades back in the game while getting rid of the Crash Pad Juniors in order to kind of have a good movement meta and fun, healthy, high energy option available for players that have certain clutch moments in games. Now, based on the wording, it seems like this change might only affect the unranked category, so if you're someone who plays ranked battle royale or rank 0 build, you might still have the older loot pool still enabled, because it appears they just want to test this out before, making it the main competitive environment. They go on to mention that they have some very cool mobility ideas cooking that they can't wait to tell us about in a future game update. So it's going to be interesting to see what future mobility ideas they actually end up implementing in the game and how well those actually end up being introduced, because there's sometimes when we get a good mobility item, but when there's better options available in the loot pool, no one's going to really care about the few mobility items here and there. Hopefully it is a good change though, and hopefully the new mobility they add to the game ends up being a welcome addition, but only time will tell. After that, they mentioned that submachine guns will receive a significant buff across the board, and they go on to mention that for a while now, submachine guns have blurred the lines with assault rifles and typical player loadouts. With this update, they expect SMGs to perform faster, snappier, and be a more viable close-up option with fun run-and-gun capabilities. The Hollow Rush SMG will deal more damage per shot, have a larger magazine, and handle faster, making it snappier to pull out and aim. The Flex SMG will deal more damage, have a larger magazine, and handle faster to match other SMGs in this category. The dual micro SMGs as well will deal more damage, have a larger magazine, and slightly faster handling. They're continuing to, tune and mix up some of the different SMG identities in the loot pool, and they want our feedback in order to keep these changes coming. They go on as well with this balance update to mention that the Tactical Assault Rifle and Enforcer Assault Rifle will deal more damage, and they're continuing to close the gap between the Deadeye Assault Rifle and other weapons to give you a more meaningful choice in your loadout, depending on what you actually want to pick. Instead of just thinking something like the Deadeye Assault Rifle, which we have right here, is the most overpowered choice. Maybe one of the other items ends up becoming more of a spotlight item for you to actually use once the AR tuning gets added with the next game update. Of course, they could technically add this stuff now, but I think they want to go ahead and let the current, system we've got going on marinate until they can do a downtime update, so that, maybe they can change some different values that they can't do with a hotfix, or just do some little small adjustments to the loot pool here and there that can only be done with an actual downtime update. Other than that, they go on to mention that the tactical pistol will deal more damage, retain damage at a range, or maintain damage better at a range, and they're going to go ahead and increase the aim down sight speed so that you're able to actually give that tactical pistol a more of a fighting chance against some of the other competition in terms of weapons in the game. The Sovereign's shotgun will also be getting a new buff. It will fire slightly faster while aiming down the sights for a smoother fill. Then we have the Stealth Splash. The Stealth Splash will last significantly longer, and you'll be able to carry more of them. They go on to mention quote-unquote lock-on rifles ? So maybe there's something going on here where you'll be able to go ahead and have a rifle that actually locks onto enemies similar to the lock-on pistol, but if you're under the effect of a Stealth Splash, then it doesn't actually affect you at all, because you will be basically hidden from the lock-on system. So basically they seem to be working on a new way to counter a upcoming weapon in the game. They go on to also mention that the all-terrain cart, aka the ATK, will have its health increase to make it more durable across all game modes, and then they start talking about some bug fixes. And they mentioned that bugs that are currently fixed live right now is a hotfix to significantly improve some of the crashing issues. I know that even though there have been some crashing issues fixed, I have heard complaints from friends and stuff about stuff going on, such as not even being able to open up your settings without the game crashing, and some people trying to go to stuff like Save the World in order to use the old setting UI to hopefully get around that. But hopefully some of these more crashing issues that exist when just trying to go to some of the normal menus ends up being fixed in the future. They also mentioned that for PC, the DirectX 11 rendering mode may still see some instability, which makes sense considering we are literally playing DirectX 11 right now, and you can kind of see some of that laggy cuttiness happening in the gameplay in the background. but they are working on some of the crashing issues. They also mentioned they fixed a Deadeye assault rifle bug that allowed players to fire early when equipping the weapon. They ended up fixing a blinked knocked bug, where sometimes when you knock a player or something, it would just say knocked with no actual text in the actual knock field, so it was like, oh, congratulations, you knocked Casper the Ghost or something. They fixed the issue where older versions of the HUD/UI no longer persisted a battle royale after playing a creative experience, which is definitely interesting to see some of those fixes going on and see them mention creative in general, because I've been thinking about creative 1.0 for a while, and it feels like creative 1.0 has basically just been completely forgotten about by Epic Games, and who knows, maybe we can start getting some updates to that as well. They also mentioned that materials now correctly drop on elimination and ranked reload, and ballistic ranked quests can now be actually progressed properly and completed. They mentioned in v39.40 they're going to be adding some new bug fixes, such as mantling and hurtling sounds will actually be returning to the regular volume levels. Audio weapons firing will correctly play in Battle Royale after playing a creative/UEFN match. There will be a fix to an issue where recoil on some weapons will no longer incorrectly reset your reticle back to the original firing point, causing aim problems. So imagine, like, you shoot, it goes up a little bit, and then your kind of recoil stayed up there, right? It never went back to where it started, and it stays at like that heightened point. That is something they're going to be fixing. They'll be fixing the lag when navigating to the lobby locker and emote wheel. They're also adding a new favorites tab to the emote wheel, so you can quickly access and move more smoothly through all the different emotes you own. So, some of those older features like the favorites tab returning once again, which is nice to actually see. I know some people want to see the return of the traversal tab to the emote wheel, but at least having a favorites area is a nice starting point for them to actually do that change. They're also investigating an issue where vehicle buttons will now be present with where vehicle buttons weren't being present while using an old HUD layout on mobile devices. So you'll be able to actually see like the drive, stop, drift. You'll be able to see those buttons once again. They're also investigating some other issues, but they don't have fixes right now, such as things regarding latency feeling higher than normal. They said that it's proving complicated to actually pin down that bug and why it's actually occurring, but they're starting to kind of work on fixing it over time. They're also going to be working on stuff like reload players being unable to shoot more fight weapons as you actually upgrade them. They're going to make sure that in a future update you will be able to properly shoot those even after it's been upgraded, because that chrome effect sometimes can glitch out guns. It's even been a bug like in the old days of Fortnite as well. They're trying to also fix some of the inconsistencies with hurtling and mantling, such as interaction props not appearing when expected or inputs not registering near things like windows or ledges. So they're going to be making sure that that's a more fluid experience like when it first released in the game, and just tons of quality of life things that they're going to slowly be investigating and working on for future updates. It's nice at the very least to see this type of communication going on and to see things that they want to go ahead and potentially fix in future updates so that we can have a more smoother experience. Even if right now you guys have basically heard my complaints a million times, it feels like they hadn't really been focusing on gameplay but more so just collaborations. The last three bugs that it's listed here that they're working on fixing, if I can go ahead and get up, I can't aim. Okay, if I can go ahead, okay, can you stop jumping for a moment please? There we go. If I can go ahead and get elimination, is that they're looking at tournament players that may have experienced issues loading into tournaments. This has been a big issue. I've seen people even complain to me about multiple times, thinking I'm like an Epic employee or something. They're going to be making sure that you'll be able to load into matches, as well as the UI scoring placement bug that it's fixed in a future update, so that tournaments don't feel like an afterthought in the game. It feels like it's an actual fluid part of the game, just like everything else should actually feel in the game as well. So that is a big thing that they're planning on working on and fixing out. Another thing they mentioned is the storm icon next to the minimap doesn't communicate when the storm is shrinking or holding still. They're planning on fixing that, or what I meant to say is they're planning on fixing that in a future game update. As you can see right there's a countdown of 9 seconds, but once it actually goes to the storm thing, you can't really tell a storm is going on. I'll go ahead and let that play in the top right, so let's wait a moment. And yeah, you can see that there's a little bit of like a flash and everything, but with how minimized the UI has become recently, especially with me doing a smaller UI scale than normal, it ends up becoming something that you don't really notice too often, because you usually focus more on the center of the screen, and it's something that they're working on making a little bit better. Now, we also have an issue that they're working on fixing where they're aware that some interactions may become unusable after editing the default binds, such as, editing default binds on a controller. They're working on fixing this as well. And then that's kind of where their blog post ends off, but a decent amount of changes and content that they want to go ahead and improve for everyone who's actually playing the game. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this recent update? Are you someone who's going to be excited to see some of these bug fixes coming to the game? Are you happy they're at least working on, making sure some of the collaboration, or actually not collaborations, but are you happy to see that they're actually working on making sure some of the actual inputs and, crashes and stuff don't happen as frequently as they have been this whole entire chapter? Until next time, however, hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's YouTube video. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow with another upload. So until then, peace out.